think I'm addicted to Psalms, but that's a good thing. It's okay, don't worry. The Psalms are incredibly fascinating. I originally decided to stick to the readings from the book of Psalms during the Boston Marathon trip, but now I just can't stop digging into the assigned Psalms each day. You might know that the book of Psalms is actually a collection of different Psalms divided up into 5 different books. Psalms 1 and 2 are the introduction. And then here's how it works. Book 1 is Psalms 3 through 41. Book 2 is Psalms 42 through 72. Book 3 is Psalm 73 through 89. And book 4 is 90 through 106, which leaves Psalms 107 through 150 that comprise book 5. But get this, our psalm assigned for today, Psalm 86, was written by David, and it is a prayer that David prays during a lonely time in his life. It expresses deep loneliness. And in all of book 3, Psalm 86 is the only psalm of David. Even the psalm itself is a lonely psalm. So let's look at it quickly. In verses 1 through 7, David begins by appealing to God first for God's compassion. So he knows that God is a compassionate God, and that's what he appeals to. Then he appeals to God's faithfulness. Listen to how that develops in verses 4 through 5. Gladden the soul of your servant, David says. For to you, O Lord, do I lift up my soul. For you, O Lord, are good and forgiving, abounding in steadfast love to all who call on you. So he bases his prayer, his appeal, in the midst of his loneliness. He bases it all not upon himself, but upon God and God's compassion and God's faithfulness, as I mentioned. Notice how bold David is, though, as he prays, even though he is going through a very lonely time. Then in verse 10, it drives home the point. And in all of this portion of this psalm, verses 8 through 16, David praises God for all that God does for us in love. David says, for you, and he's praying to God, for you are great and do wondrous things. You alone are God. So what does David actually ask for? Notice that David doesn't simply ask for God to show him how to respond in a particular way. What he asks for is that God would help him to develop good habits, godly habits, habits that are faithful to God's word. He wants to walk in God's truth. Then in verses 14 through 17, we're given a glimpse of the reason why David is so lonely. He says that insolent men have risen up against him, ruthlessly seeking his life. But this is no pity party on David's part. As he offers up his prayer to God for comfort, David also asks for strength. And with God there is abundant strength to be found and received by faith, for God is a good and gracious God. Well, I am at the end of a day as I record this, and as you maybe can tell, I'm a little bit tired after all of the adventures that were had in the past week and all the good things that happened today too, as I got back to the grindstone, as they say. And I pray that God would bless you and keep you, and I will look forward to